Now, without further delay, I'd like to turn today's call over to your first speaker, Chuck Tomasi. Chuck, you have the floor.
Hello and welcome to TechNow, the web series for ServiceNow administrators and developers on a variety of Now Platform topics. This is episode 55 on London Platform features. So thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it immensely. My name is Chuck Tomasi. I'm a senior TPMM with ServiceNow. Been with the company for a little over 8 years, was a customer for a couple of years before that. There's some other history in there that, we've got so much content today that I wish we had more time. If this was a 2-hour thing, we'd be great. But I'm going to keep my intro short just so we can make sure you get the maximum value out of this. Kreg?
I'll keep mine short as well. I'm Kreg Steppe. How you doing? Just kidding. I'm a senior curriculum developer in training and certifications at ServiceNow. I've been here for over 4 years, working on 5, big 5-0, no, not 5-0. And I've been a co-host TechNow since 2016, from 2016 to now. Next up is Stacey Bailey.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Stacey Bailey. I'm a principal curriculum developer with ServiceNow, focusing on platform education. I've been a ServiceNow employee for about 4 years, on the platform for 9, and kind of a geek for life.
Hello everyone, I'm Pradeep Sharma. I'm very excited to join TechNow today and share with you about the new features on London. A quick update on myself. I'm one of the main developers who work with major partners and guide them with solutions from different perspectives, including architectural, app development, and certification. I just completed my 4th anniversary here at ServiceNow. I'm very happy about that. Prior to ServiceNow, I have several years of experience in enterprise software in IT industry, particularly implementing ServiceNow applications. On top of it, I also spend quite a bit of time on community, helping customers and partners.
All right, and just a footnote, Pradeep is probably the most frequent guest we've had on this show. I think this is your 3rd episode, Pradeep?
You're right, Chuck.
So if you want to find out more, we did the community, we did some Kingston stuff, and now it's London time. So when we need the big guns, we call Pradeep and say, help. Our agenda today is we're going to start out with a quick tip. This is something we brought in about a year and a half ago to give you just a little snippet, something useful that we find helpful. It seems to go under the radar, and Craig's going to cover that, and then we'll get into our main topic, and we'll save the Q&A. If you've got a Q&A at any point, obviously use the Q&A in there. Craig and Stacey are going to be monitoring for questions, and then when we get to the end, we'll wrap that up. In fact, I think we're going to make an audible here, Craig. I'll watch the Q&A while you're doing the quick tip. How's that sound?
That's fine.
All right.
But before we get there, one quick plug for Knowledge 19. May seem like it's pretty far out, 265 days away, but it's just in time for budget season. If you visit knowledge.servicenow.com, click the Save the Date button to be added to the mailing list to block your calendars and get all of the updates. We'll be back at the Venetian in Las Vegas. This is going to be my 10th Knowledge in 2009. They've gotten bigger and bigger each year. Yeah, seriously, huh? Going to Knowledge is like drinking from a fire hose of insight, inspiration, and education. It's your chance to get really deep into the platform, try out all the newest platform features, and establish some connections and friendships that span decades, actually. One of my favorite parts of Knowledge is pre-conference training. Last year, we had over 30 different training classes running before the conference started in 50 different training rooms. We trained over 2,000 people in person. There's a huge discount on classes, and all the training is supported by some of the best subject matter experts in the field. So be sure to go to Knowledge, hit Save the Date, and check up on all the important alerts there.
Thank you, Stacey. I think this is my 10th as well coming up. So it goes fast, and there's always something new to see.
Isn't it? It's fantastic. It just gets better and better. Also, in last month's webinar, we introduced you to the Customer Success Center. That's at servicenow.com/success. Here we've got curated content to help customers achieve business goals, but it doesn't just stop at that business level. There's a wealth of really great technical content in there also. One of the things I ran across the other day was under Platform Cloud Infrastructure. In there, you'll find an ebook about data encryption that does a great job of explaining all of the encryption options available on the platform. But my favorite part is Appendix B, which talks about how the encryption implications on using reporting, business rules, workflow, search, etc. And it's got a column for how to mitigate and work around or work with the limitations that encryption security includes. So definitely check that out. There's some good stuff.
All right. So that leads to me. It's a community quick tip. And this one's kind of simple but very useful, especially if you're doing some REST calls or doing something with some JSON. And, JSON, looking at JSON, especially if it's compressed, can certainly look like trying to read hieroglyphics. It can be a little harebrained trying to figure it out. As you can see, hopefully my screen is coming up. If y'all can give me a cue that it is. Can y'all see it? Yep. Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you. And so you can see here I got some compressed JSON, and like I said, it's kind of hard to read. So throughout the platform, sometimes you've probably seen where it says like payload and it has a little XML tag where you can view it with an external window and it comes up all formatted. But you can do the same thing with JSON. So let me show you. So we'll go to the configure dictionary, and once that comes up, we can go down and show advanced view. I'm going to show you how to do it by hand. So we'll go to advanced view. Now we have attributes. That pops up. So if we put JSON view, not JSON, JSON view equals true, and update that. We go back to my table. I believe that's my shortcut for it. So I got one record, and now you'll see that there's a icon much like the XML one, but it's like a top-down list icon. Click it, and I'm using Firefox, so everything's nice and colored. It gives you a breakdown of the JSON, and you can, of course, navigate through it. It's much easier to see what you got rather than trying to look at that compressed JSON. So there you go. That's the quick tip, is how to enable that JSON like icon. And also, let me show you, go back to the configure dictionary. You'll see down at the bottom, it's under attributes, under the tab. You'll see it now lists JSON view is true. So you can add it here if you'd like, but it's a little easier for me just to hit advanced view and stick it in the text. So there you go.
All right, thanks, Kreg. Very useful stuff. I'm glad you shared that. I love that, especially when doing integrations. That comes in very handy. It keeps you from having to go to a third-party site and dump your JSON in there and format it, and copy it back. It's like, nice.
Yeah, see, in the past I've used like VS Code. I've copied and pasted the JSON in and did formatting just like you said. Yeah, that's much easier.
So, as someone who does a lot of integration with JSON payloads, really appreciate it. All right, now it's time to show off what y'all came here to see. Look at that. We're making record time, and I love it. This is all about the new features available in our London release. So, quick review. If you're new to ServiceNow, this is our release process where we plan 2 releases per year, and we name our releases alphabetically after cities of the world. Here you can see our last several releases and some of the major features. If you have really good eyesight, you might be able to see that. And the thing to note is much of the features in our release are driven by input from our customers. So we do listen to you and what you need. And one of them, I'm going to start with, is Agent Workspace. Now, the focus of our London release is all about improving the user experience. And Agent Workspace is directly targeted to service desk agents and other fulfillers who spend the majority of their time in ServiceNow. This, again, is a direct result of customer feedback letting us know that the default UI with the standard lists and forms and whatnot was not quite aligned with the way agents actually work. The initial release is what we call limited availability in London, and you'll see more of this being more widespread because we want to get this out in the field and get that feedback. Agent Workspace also requires additional licensing. That's what that little price tag is up in the corner. So if you see that come up during a few of these slides, you'll know, hey, this is a licensed product, and you can differentiate that from the stuff that is built into the platform. We charge for this because we feel it adds an extreme amount of effectiveness for the agents. Now, as I mentioned, the initial target audience is people like Tier 1 IT Service Desk agent technicians and Tier 2 customer service desk agents or customer support. And I'm not going to cover all the details of Agent Workspace here. We will be doing a deeper dive in an upcoming TechNow session to show you all the features of how to configure it and how it's used. I'm really looking forward to that one. But until then, I can point out a few of the highlights on this screen, such as having a tabbed interface for multiple incidents open at once. And as you drill into each record, you get a new tab on that second row with the details of that record. Instead of using your browser tabs and having to switch back and forth and getting the session cookies and the stuff all out of whack, the form layout has also been optimized with related list information at the top. You can see there's like task SLAs and approvals, much better. So there's so much more, but in the interest of time, I'm going to save that for a special episode. We're going to get there, but we have so much more to cover. I'm going to turn it over to Pradeep for another really cool new feature.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, now we get to one of the coolest features, Virtual Agent, which is part of our intelligence automation engine. It's a licensed product as part of our London release. To best get what Virtual Agent does, let's see how ServiceNow works from a requester and provider perspective. ServiceNow owner shown in the middle defines services that connect requesters with providers. If we look at what providers do, we see that there's opportunity to automate some of that work to increase efficiency and improve the overall experience. In Kingston, we introduced Agent Intelligence, which uses machine learning to categorize, assign, and prioritize requests. Now in London, we are introducing Virtual Agent, a conversational chatbot native to the Now platform that can resolve common tasks and requests, and it can be used right away to tackle everyday work. It will simulate conversations a requester would have with a live agent. Without Virtual Agent, live agent must address all tasks and requests, whether they are common or the more involved that can only be completed by people. The common routine tasks are not what agents want to work on. It's not the interesting part of their job, and customers are left dissatisfied as even routine requests seem to take way too long for fulfillment. It's not a great experience for anyone, and it's why we're launching Virtual Agent.
Hey, Pradeep, hang on right there. I don't know if anybody noticed, it looks like there's a leech on that guy's face. It's not a leech. That is a tribute to 7 of 9 if you're a Star Trek fan watching Star Trek Voyager. So we thought, we would incorporate the Borg in here with the artificial intelligence. So just, I don't know if that humor was lost on anybody going, what is that thing? So
I got it.
We like to have our fun.
Yeah, I got it.
I got it.
ServiceNow Virtual Agent is a conversational bot platform that captures inquiries, transactions, and conversations within a messaging interface so users can instantly obtain information, get decisions, and instigate actions, all facilitated by an automated agent. The common use case could be your FAQ. It could be your record. It could be your troubleshooting, or it could be your diagnostic. It's very expressive. Now your developers and administrators alike can easily create app-specific virtual agents that increase productivity and maintain higher level of customer services at any scale. We will ship pre-built conversation templates out of the box for ITSM, CSM, and HR. The Virtual Agent Designer is a graphical tool for creating and managing topics, which are blueprints for conversations between a virtual agent and user. It comes with 18 pre-built conversations for common use cases. It's a low-code, no-code editor, so we have some builder, and we also have some ability to drop into a script for most advanced scenarios. It's portable. And what I mean by that is it gives you the ability to build the bot once and then push the bot to where your customers are. In the sense, you could push it to the chat line. It could be your web. It could be your mobile, iOS, or it could be your Android, Slack, and Teams. Jeff?
All right, thanks, Pradeep. I am really getting into a virtual agent the more I explore it, the more I have fun with it. We've also updated a few things. We made stages available in Flow Designer. Just a few quick particulars. Stages are defined at the top level flow, and always on this little checkbox, you see the switch that says always. That means it will be displayed on the stage field once the flow is started. And once it's defined, stages are simply inserted between the actions in your flow and displayed in the first field type, the first field of type workflow. So you have to have a field of type workflow, often called stage, and that's where they show up on the list. So very easy to insert, very easy to maintain. Flow Designer in London also enables the creation of subflows. Subflows allow admins and developers to create reusable blocks of actions, thus providing a faster way to do more modular design. Subflows are composed of course, inputs, outputs, actions, and flow logic, and can be used within flows and other subflows. Now, we've also exposed a scriptable API for Flow Designer to enable you to trigger your flows from UI actions, business rules, or other server-side scripts. The current API supports record-based triggers, schedule-based triggers, service catalog triggers, and metric-based triggers, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. I also want to point out that the flows run asynchronously, so plan accordingly as you design your scripts. That means they're going to run in the background. And the Flow Designer team has been very busy with several other enhancements, including cleaning up the UI, collapsible blocks, nested for each statements. I know a number of you were looking forward to that, and annotations on the trigger and flow logic to make it easier to maintain your flows. I've used that already, and it's already saved me. I said, what was I thinking here? And as of Kingston, we can define connection attributes associated with a connection alias. In London, we can take advantage of these attributes in Flow Designer. And as you can see here, it's used in a REST step. So if you're doing integrations and you want to make sure that you've got segregation of your connection properties between dev, test, prod, you can do that same as you could in other areas. Script step now allows you to choose the runtime environment as one of the following: instance, which is the default, mid or vanilla, which is your core JavaScript stuff. So you can run on either the instance or the mid server. And customers have asked for it. Here's another case where you asked and we listened. We responded in London. You can now send REST messages in Flow Designer via the mid server with an IntegrationHub subscription, of course. That's why the price tag is up there. So very handy. I've played around with that as well. Very cool. You can also choose the request type, including text, binary, multi-part, or form URL encoded. And if you use this, then the appropriate header is sent by the engine for the selected request type. Be aware that the request type header overrides any content type header value specified in the header's input for that step. So if you use this, it overrides whatever you put in the content type header. In London, you'll also find a PowerShell step available for you if you've got IntegrationHub. This one was done for feature parity with our orchestration product, and of course, allows you to run automations that interact with the PowerShell process. And London also includes pre-built spokes for Microsoft AD and Azure AD. Now, we've also expanded the types of triggers. If you're familiar with metric-based, instead of just one, we now have three. Metric-based is our massively scalable database targeted a lot towards IoT. So should have given a quick background on that. The first is the standard band trigger we introduced in Kingston. And when a threshold is met, a trigger is fired, a script is run. Next, we've added the linear predictor trigger, which allows you to fire a trigger based on predictions you make. So if the temperature metric is trending towards a threshold, you might want to know about it before it gets too hot, for example. Finally, we've added the gap trigger, which I really wish we had at Knowledge 18 or could take advantage of it, because that one triggers when you stop receiving data from a given metric, such as an IoT device going offline. So when my weather station out on my patio stops sending information for 10 minutes, send me a notification of some type. And as I mentioned before, metric-based can also be used as a trigger in Flow Designer. Very handy. Less scripting, easier to do. London release, we're also providing users with the ability to receive notifications via messaging applications, such as Slack and Teams in Kingston. I wouldn't be surprised if we have more in the future. This is in addition to the existing email notifications. An administrator will be able to associate the messaging application with their instance, and an admin will be able to see the public channels or conversations in Teams, channels in Slack, conversations in Teams, of course, and configure notifications to be delivered to them. Some notifications will be actionable and have certain controls, such as buttons, which is useful for things like approvals. This allows the user to interact with the instance via the messaging client's native interface. Note that, again, there's that price tag thing. It requires an IntegrationHub subscription. As I mentioned, these are great for more than just notifications. Hey, I've opened an incident for you. But as you can also see here, they can be actionable, like an approval. So just a quick note, users are required to do a one-time authentication to link their Slack or Team account with the ServiceNow accounts for these actionable notifications. What else have we got to show them, Pradeep?
Sure, thanks, Chuck. I have something really great you folks are looking for that's available in London release. Let's move to REST API rate limiting. You can now define rate limit rules to limit the number of inbound REST API requests processed per hour to prevent excessive use. It can be enforced for your specific users, users with specific roles, or it could be for all users. Here I have got a rate limit rule, which is a combination of REST API resource and HTTP method that is applied to all users with request limit per hour count value set to value 3, which means that if a user makes more than 3 requests in the current hour, the request would be disallowed and we send back the response with appropriate status code and headers. As you can see here, we have 2 tabs, rate limit counts and rate limit violations. Rate limit count will track the count of incoming REST transactions that match the predefined rules, whereas a record in the rate limit violations is created only when incoming REST transaction has reached the maximum allowed request count for the current hour. We have added support for custom content type in a scripted REST API. You can now define the custom content type in the content negotiation of the scripted REST resource by checking override support request format values to true and supplying the supported request formats values. This will help you to define the structure along with the format of your content. In order to increase the security, all new and existing non-public scripted REST API resource will now require SNC internal role unless it is explicitly open to your external users. Now, this is applicable to our customers who have explicit roles plugin activated in their instance. When require SNC flag is set to true, the user making the request must have SNC_internal role. If not, the request will get failed with the status code of 403. Delete recovery, one of my favorites. It allows you to roll back data changes to your system. In the past, we had the ability to restore deleted records, but it was up to the person doing the delete to know which records were affected. In some cases, it was not obvious that the system not only deleted records, but updated others. So simply restoring the deleted record was not a full restoration of the data. In this screenshot, we got an idea of some of the things being deleted if we delete the user account. But again, this is not the full picture. Not only did it delete the user record and related records like group membership, but it also updated incident where the user was the caller, change request where they were assigned to, and any other record that referenced the now deleted record. The new feature is under the rollback and recovery menu. If we click delete recovery and open the record that corresponds to our transaction, we get a visual representation of how many records and tables are affected with that one delete operation. Some may be obvious like group membership, but others are more subtle. By clicking the rollback link on the form, the system is now able to restore all that information to the original state. And here we see an example of the result. Not only did it restore the deleted record, but also the field information like the change request assigned to field value. Also note, this is not restoring the entire change record, only the field values that got changed. In this case, it's assigned to. Delete recovery features can also be used to roll back accidental data changes like those done in script's background. Note the new checkbox at the bottom, record for rollback, which is default to on. Here I have got a script in my sub-production instance. My objective here is to glide record to the CMDB CI server table, find the record with matching Assert tag, query the record, and update the name field as Ditka. At this point of time, I only have a record in my CMDB CI server table with one matching name value. Anyone who is paying close attention to the script must have noticed a problem. Let's not worry of testing it. So I go ahead and click on Run Script. I got to look at my server table. That's not what I wanted. This is because I have the invalid field name in add query, which results in skipping of that line and querying all the records. Now we give you the nice link and the nice summary of all the tables that are impacted with operation and row count. So you can see here all the records in server table got updated with the name as Ditka. Now I can go to rollback and recovery application and select the module script execution history. When you open the record, you can see the script that was executed, and if you click on affected record summary tab, it gives you the nice summary representation of all the tables that are impacted because of the script. Now I can click on rollback script execution related link. If you click that, it starts to roll back all your changes. The rollback is in progress, and you can see here all the changes are reverted back. How cool is that? Also note this recovery must be done within 7 days of the record deletion. Alright, let's move to service portal. If you have dealt with search sources, you can now create search sources with facets. So if there are too many results for a search keyword, you can use facets to filter the query further. As you can see here in the faceted search UI, we have added filter menu section to display the search facets. Here is the new search on the mobile. In the old search UI, you see search sources and search list, whereas in the new search UI, we have introduced new filter icon. When user clicks on filter icon, it will open filter menu overlay. Here users can click on apply faces to filter down the results. We have introduced the pagination concept in Service Portal. Now you can configure the results shown to the user before they click on Load More Results. In the old search, we rendered the record depending on what values you have in the single search property. If it did not input any value, then we defaulted to 15. We still have got the same option to configure the max results for single search sources. As you can see here, instance option shows 5 results at a time, and user can click on Load More Results to load additional 5 results. We have now added ATF support for Service Portal Forms. Yay! You will now see a new category called Forms in Service Portal. This will allow you to execute a suite of test cases against Service Portal Forms. We have added field validation support for Service Portal. So now if you have got email field on your portal form, we will block users from entering invalid value. Field validation script on Service Portal will only work when the UI type field is set to mobile or Service Portal, or if it is set to all. If it is set to all, it means that the validation script will work for your desktop and for your Service Portal. Of course, this is assuming that you are sure that your script will run in every single context. Chuck, back to you. What do you have something interesting to share with the audience?
I have quite a few things left. I wasn't sure. You were going on for quite a while there, buddy. Excuse me. That was good stuff. I got to confess, I had a dream a couple nights ago that I didn't make it to this webinar. I tried and tried and tried, and there were mechanical reasons and people reasons and all kinds of reasons that were keeping me from doing this. So I can't tell you what a dream it is to not have that dream come true. There's more good stuff. Let's get back at it. We've updated the application manager page This is the one that used to say develop, download, and update. So we cleaned it up for a more informative layout. This is just another example of, again, improving the user experience, not just for the fulfillers, but for the administrators and developers as well. I've used this for a few weeks since London was available on the personal developer instances and enjoyed it very much. Now, when you create a new application in Studio, you'll see a Start from Global option appears on the Create Application dialog. This offers you the ability to create an application, or if you prefer, just a namespace to manage your global files in the global scope and manage them similarly to a scoped app. There are some subtle differences, which I'll get to in a second. And some savvy administrators may remember that there's a property you could turn on to show this, but this goes beyond that. This has features above that. So visually it's doing the same thing, but London adds some features to make it easier to manage your global apps and changes those apps. There's a few other details about what happens if you try to edit something in the same two different global apps, about claiming files. We don't have time to get into all of that, but perhaps we'll do that on another episode in the near future. And while we'd love it if everyone created scoped apps, we recognize there are legacy reasons why you would want to do your configuration and customization in the global space. Previously, there was a big feature gap of what is available to scoped versus global. Customers didn't like that, and we listened. So what we've done with London is you can now use Studio, as I just showed you in the previous slide, to take those global changes and manage them in a scope namespace. This isn't to say that you're going to take the entire incident app and manage it in Studio, but you can manage those changes to incident much easier in Studio. And when it comes time to promote those to your test or prod environment, you can publish your global changes via the app repo instead of update sets. Again, this makes it much easier for you to do your change and release management in that global space. Of course, the preference is to do such changes to those apps in a scoped app whenever possible, but on those rare occasions when you must do something in global, we've got a better way for you to manage them. One thing that has been driving people nuts since the beginning of scoped apps, present company included, is that changes to choice lists didn't get promoted via the app repo. And this was causing all kinds of workarounds, frustration, and even some people simply denying to use scoped apps at all. So I won't get into all the technical and historical reasons for why this was done due to time, but I'd just like to point out that any changes made to choice lists via the syschoice table or configure choices, that kind of thing, are now published via the app repo and should make a lot of people very happy. And if you've installed any apps from the store or your app repo, it's now possible to roll back to an earlier version of that app. For example, if you recently upgraded from version 2.5 to 2.6 of that super, uber, duper critical integration, and it doesn't work quite as expected, you can roll back to version 2.5 quite easily with the click of a link. And to make IT's life even easier, we've added the ability to delegate deployment tasks via delegated development. I know, I've been telling you part of the beauty of delegated development was that non-admins can create, and IT still maintains governance and control of releases. That can still be true if you wanted to. But if you recognize low-risk apps or changes and you simply want to give non-admins the ability to publish to the repo, you can still maintain control of when it gets installed into other instances, test, prod, etc. Just more flexibility to reduce the amount of work IT has to do around releasing updates. Another feature that customers have been asking for, I think since the beginning of ServiceNow, I know it was asked when I was a customer 10 years ago, is custom URLs. For example, they'd like to access their main support site on ServiceNow via support.acme.com instead of acme.servicenow.com. And in the past, some customers have dealt with this using proxy configuration. In London, we make this much easier to configure multiple company-branded domains like hr.acme.com, support.acme.com, or service.acme.com. You can use any or all of those in your domain to point to an instance or underlying service portal. So just a couple of notes. You need to activate the custom URL plugin to use this feature. And, of course, you must own the target domain. I'm not going to be able to point google.com to my ServiceNow instance. That's just, I don't own it. That's not going to happen. London also introduces a new field type, a file attachment field. These are available on standard forms and work much like image fields, but they can accept any file type. So here you can see a quote field and a template field. They put their files in sys attachment just like photos, but great if you want to make sure a file is mandatory, is required and is there. You can check for a non-null value. We've also added a new option to make it easy to identify potential items to review in future upgrades. The Debug Upgrade module turns on debug that appears at the bottom of standard forms and lists, much like debug business rules, debug ACLs, that kind of thing. And it shows you what's been customized, skipped, and modified. So this makes it easy to browse around the system and identify records to review or potentially revert during your upgrade process. I believe it's back over to you, Pradeep.
Thank you again, Chuck. All right, let's move to Service Catalog, one of my favorites. We have now introduced table variable in Service Catalog. This is one of the most requested features from our customers, and I'm very happy to see this feature added in our London release. It allows users to capture multi-row, multi-column information in a single request without having users to submit multiple requests for the same. As you can see here, I can now submit single request to block multiple addresses on the firewall with each IP having different start and end dates. When the request item is created, you can see the table variable along with other variables present in the form under variables section. The next feature we have introduced in Catalog is SQL Debugger. It will help you to analyze the impact of variables set up in a catalog item on its runtime performance and identify if there are any issues. This will give you the information like number of SQL queries triggered and time taken to process and load the catalog item page. We have added two new fields in Catalog UI Policy Action. One is Order field, which will help you to specify the sequence in which the UI policy action should be evaluated. And the other one is Clear the Variable Value field. This field can be used to clear the variable value on the page.
I like that one. I don't know how many times I've had to revert to a client script to do that simple little action.
Yeah, I agree. That's very handy. All right, let's move to Service Catalog ATF. We have now added ATF support for Service Catalog in Service Portal. You can now write ATF tests to validate catalog items in Service Portal. And we have added new user criteria scoped APIs in our London release. I'm not going to get in detail and discuss about each of the user criteria, but just want to point out that we have added new in our London release. I believe it's over to you, Chuck.
Yep. Just a few more things. How come you get all the good stuff? We also added some nice enhancements around Automated Test Framework, or ATF, based on your feedback. Again, we're listening to you. What do you need? What do you want? The first one is you can whitelist client errors. And while running your test, you may come across client errors that stop your test entirely because they're an error. But they're not germane to the test itself. You can now whitelist these errors and prevent the test from stopping. We've also added ATF test steps to the Application Navigator. So now you can check for application menu visibility, module visibility, and even navigate to a module. And something else that has been requested is a negative assertion. Instead of assuming a case like, hey, if no data is returned, that's a failure. Well, you may be testing an ACL or something, and you need to reverse that logic to validate that no records should be returned, and that would be a good thing. So we can now do negative assertions in tests. And if you were watching closely on the previous screenshots, you'll notice that the menu on the left now includes an option at the top labeled All Steps, which breaks out all the submenu options into one long list. Why would this be valuable? Well, this is handy when you know what the step is called, but you don't remember where to find it. That happens to me. I'm getting old. I can't remember what menu option it's under. So show me everything, and I'll find it myself. So any final London goodness to share with our viewers today, Pradeep?
Sure. Thanks, Chuck. I've got one more topic, guided tools. A couple of key features here. Guided tools can be made on standard UI, custom application, and even London is for your service portal. In Service Portal, you will see a new Tools menu item. The little blue circle indicates that there are tools available for you to access. You choose the tool you want. It gives you an idea of what training is out there that's available to you. The next feature we have introduced is Introduction and Conclusion steps on your tool. Previously, when you launch the tool, it started right away. Step number 1, here you go. And we used to put something in the last step to make the user aware that this is the end of the tool. Now, admins can create introduction to the tool, something that looks like this, and you can wrap up your tool with the conclusion. We have also added draft and publish mode in guided tool. Previously, when you create the tool, the moment you hit create, it's available. It's live to all your users. Now we default the tool to draft state when you create it, and it is not live to your users until you publish it. In the draft mode, users can preview, publish, and share the link of their tool. Over to you, Chuck.
Thanks, Pradeep. I think you were holding out on me on that guided tour designer for Service Portal. That's one of my favorites, aside from delete recovery. I think everybody's going to have their favorites that came out of here today. And I see that some people are just logging in, and I want to remind you that you can find this information. We will post this to the community in just a few days. But before we close out, I want to point out that we do have some useful reference information. And the first link points, of course, to our online product documentation. There you can find London release notes and other information to get more details about the features we covered here today. The next link is, of course, to our ServiceNow community, where you can search for answers, ask your questions to your other peers or customers or ServiceNow partners, even employees. Like Pradeep and I hang out there, probably a little more than we should, but that's a good thing, I think. I also invite you to visit our developer portal to get a free personal developer instance, which now includes the London release. London isn't generally available for a couple more weeks as of this recording, but you can try it out on your personal developer instance absolutely free of charge. You can also find all the documentation to our scripting APIs, including those added to London, along with free learning plans and, my favorite, developer meetups. So you can get together with other developer types and talk to them. We're also happy to say that we've been doing this web series since early 2013 and have about 60 episodes. I just went through and edited every single one of them in some way, shape, or form this past week. So we have them on topics ranging from how to develop applications in ServiceNow to scripting to best practices, and of course, what we covered here today, information in the latest release. Take a look at the link posted here for more information on that to see if you missed a topic. And if you didn't, well, you can let us know. Also, our Customer Success Center, as Stacey mentioned at the top of the show, is directly accessible from our main corporate site, which includes best practices and other helpful information to guide you through your ServiceNow journey. Whether you've been using ServiceNow since the old dinosaur days, like Stacey and me, or you're fairly new to it and need help upgrading, or you've just started you're looking for information on configuration versus customization, you're sure to find something useful here. When we did our survey a couple of weeks ago, a couple of episodes ago, people were asking for information that is available on the Customer Success Center. That's not to say we won't cover it in TechNow, but it's already very well documented, and we may have links to webinars and podcasts and things over on the Success Center. So let's go to the rapid-fire Q&A that Kreg and Stacey have been curating over the last 46 minutes or so. And if we don't get your questions and answers answered here today, don't feel bad. It's not that we don't like you. We love you. We thank you very much for hanging out with us and learning all about this stuff. We will be posting it to the community. So, again, that TechNow link that you see there, ServiceNow-TechNow from Bitly, we'll bring you to that episode list. You can click on London and see all of the questions and answers. I may consolidate some of them. If the same question is asked 2 or 3 times, I'm only going to post it once and the answer once. Otherwise, it would get very long and repetitive. So, Kreg, Stacey, what have we got?
Hey, first off, let me give Stacey credit because she's been curating a little bit more than I have. I've been trying to answer a lot of questions, and they're coming in fast and furious. So I'll let her have at it.
Yeah, I think one of the key themes that we've seen is interest around virtual agent, especially related to the cost. What does limited availability mean, and how do I get in on that?
So limited availability, I believe, pertained to Agent Workspace. Pradeep, you can always correct me if I'm wrong on this. And the limited availability is what it sounds like. It's limited to a certain number of customers. It's not generally available. You can't turn on a plugin. You can't call the customer support people on high and say, will you please turn this on? It has to be driven through your account team. So let them know that you're interested. I honestly don't have the details of how that program goes, but get on their radar and have that discussion. In what was the other one around virtual agent?
Right. Cost for that, limited availability, how and where to test.
Okay,
I believe that's available on the developer instances to turn on and play right now.
I'd have to check. I really didn't check it on my PDI, but that's a good case. That's a great sandbox area.
I just enabled it on mine.
Sweet.
So you'll find it.
Real-time answers.
Virtual agent may be found in your personal developer instance. You need to manage your instance to enable the plugin, and then look under Collaboration, Virtual Agent, and you should see the designer there.
All right.
Yeah, I would just like to highlight that Agent Workspace is a limited availability, and it's not available for your post PDI instances. But as Stacey and Chuck mentioned, Virtual Agent is, we enabled it, I believe, like last week. So you can go to Developers Portal and activate that plugin from the self-service option.
Great answer. Virtual agent, again, I know we have agent in a lot of these titles, and it can get a little confusing. It's kind of like UI actions, UI scripts, UI policies, when you first learned that whole vocabulary. Virtual agent is our chatbot. Virtual agent is the chatbot, and that also is a pay-for product. I'm not going to get into pricing today because whatever I say here is going to be recorded and could come back to bite me in 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, who knows. Always work with your account team when you're talking about pricing. They're going to have updated information. They can talk to you about is it per user, per node, per table, whatever the licensing happens to be at the time will be the most current. So if you're interested in pricing, please reach out to your account rep. What else we got?
We also had a number of questions around Flow Designer and the roadmap for that versus, say, workflow, and then also integration, hub, and orchestration. The question centered around whether or not Flow Designer will eventually replace workflow and become the tool of choice.
This is a very common question that we've been getting since we introduced Flow Designer and IntegrationHub back in January was the general availability for that. And the short answer is workflow and orchestration are not going away. That would be bad if we simply turned things off. That being said, we are focusing our development efforts on Flow Designer and IntegrationHub. They are not at parity yet. That is the goal. In fact, there are some things that I can do better in Flow Designer today, even though it's still in fairly early life cycle. Things like reminders on approvals. That's a whole other task in workflow. But workflow and orchestration will remain. If you've built those technologies, continue to use them. If you find something that works better for you, hallelujah. The point of Flow Designer and IntegrationHub was to allow no coders to start building those. I would be very, very reluctant to turn a subject matter expert, a process manager loose on workflow. They're eventually going to have to get into some scripting. The idea with Flow Designer and IntegrationHub and Kreg will be talking more about Integration Hub in the next episode when we talk about custom spokes and whatnot, is that the administrators, the developers, create these actions, use steps to create these, write the script, much like we do with making widgets for Service Portal. And then the no-coders come along and do the drag and drop thing. It's a lot more language-based. When record is updated, ask for approval. Things like that in Flow Designer, they're much easier to read. I know some people are, I happen to be one of them, some people are more pictorial, and they like that graphical workflow. Flow Designer takes in a little more modern approach. We've seen this with services like Zapier and, well, to some extent, IFTTT, or some people say IFT. But we're making it a more modern experience and exposing it to a lot more people in your enterprise so that they can start building processes that they know and automating them and using Flow Designer. And you can also use delegated development on Flow Designer Integration Hub. So again, less work for the IT people to do the, I'm going to call it non-interesting work.
Well, yeah. Well, there were, also to note, if I'm not mistaken, you can just now use a mid server with flows. Before you couldn't, so there was some not feature parity between the two up until now.
Yeah, it's getting closer. It's getting closer, but it certainly the old stuff is not going away. Again, if there's something that you can do in workflow and orchestration, by all means, it's not disappearing. We're not taking it away. We're just not going to, unless there's a serious critical issue, we're probably not going to be developing a whole lot of development to it.
Yeah, and I think we see a lot of movement amongst all the product teams to start building spokes for Integration Hub, which is kind of foreshadowing a little bit for next month. But some of the common actions like approve a request and things like that, we're going to see all of our core products also come with Flow Designer actions that we can reuse as well. So there's going to be a lot invested in that.
Yeah, and those turn out to, for me, I know I always start with concentric circles around my own desk, is for me, they make great examples to learn from too. It's hard to learn about Flow Designer or Service Portal or something if you don't have something in front of you. I know, Stacey, you're probably the same way. Back in 2008, the way you learned ServiceNow was to take apart what came out of the box.
Dig and reverse engineer. Yeah, and with Flow Designer specifically too, one of the things that I've done in classes and on my own too, you can look at the actions available, and there's a copy button. So you can create your own copy and just start with something you know and understand and tweak it to what you want. So that's such a powerful learning tool.
You bet. You bet.
Like I say, well stolen is half done.
Any other questions that we can answer in the next couple of minutes?
I think your answer is there any extra cost of virtual agent?
Right. There were also some questions around the recovery capabilities. How far back can you recover? And I think that's probably more of a situation of do we have recovery in place when you delete or manipulate the records in the first place versus how far back can it reach?
It's keeping a storage of up to 7 days. I think Pradeep mentioned that in his discussion, that if you do make a mistake, you've got up to 7 days, and it's a rolling transaction table. The cool thing about delete recover is it's happening, it's like intercepting those data at the database layer. It's not at the ServiceNow layer, so it's really grabbing a lot of that stuff, and that's how it knows you hit this table and you modify these records, and where you had that bar chart of 9 tables, and say, wait, I just deleted one user record. How did all that other stuff happen? That's how we know all that other stuff happened, and we can roll it back. And the nice part is it's not like a snapshot rollback. It's not going to roll back your entire instance. It's not going to roll back the entire table or the record. It's putting back the pieces that were modified. So if I, say, went into a change record, let's say I deleted the user Pradeep Sharma, and Pradeep owned a change record. It was assigned to him. And we said, oops, we accidentally deleted Pradeep's account, and then later I went into that change record and changed the short description. when I do the delete recovery, the short description stays up to date with the latest change, and it puts his field value back. So it merges the old with the new intelligently. It would be a shame to say, oh, roll back this entire record to what it looked like when Pradeep wasn't deleted. I would lose my short description change, but it doesn't do that. It's a very, very nice feature. I encourage you, again, go to your personal developer instance and play around with that feature. You get comfortable with it, because I'm going to bet you a donut that you're going to need that at some point.
Yeah, I would also like to point out that if you have got any dictionary collection attribute like no audit delete, so it's not going to recover those tables. So and then we have got the exceptions to few of the system tables. We don't roll back those changes. So if you have got few system tables and if you're deleting those, then it's not going to do the recovering of the delete operations. So there are few exceptions to that, but I think, Chuck, you're right that when it comes to expiration, we hold it for like 7 days.
Okay, thank you, Pradeep. Again, if we didn't get to your question and answer, it will be posted to the community in just a few days. I'll get that video on YouTube. I'll get the community post updated, so we'll have the embedded video and all the QA there. We built an app to manage this show. It's a great thing, and I've been using that extensively. So thank you for attending. I encourage you, fill out the survey. We want to know what you're interested in. We want to know what worked. We'll get your Q&A in there. All that information, appreciated. And at this point, I'm going to pass it back to Marvin for the closeout.
Great. Thanks, Chuck. And ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's webinar. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect. Have a great day, everyone.